Hi, my name is Dr. Renee Dominguez, and I'm the Executive Director of the Family Service Center. And I'm really honored to be here today with you as part of our partnership with the Village of Northbrook. Um, this weekly educational video series that FSC is delivering to you all is really part of the COVID relief funding that was extended from the Village of Northbrook to help our community navigate these really difficult times. I'm thankful to be here and hope that we can provide some really useful information as we get through this difficulty together. So what we're going to be doing is bringing to you a brief video weekly that'll go out in the weekly email that the village sends out. It'll be 5 to 7 minutes long. We're looking to provide brief snippets of information that are psychologically based, evidence based, and useful information with some practical strategies that'll really stimulate thinking about how um, this information might apply to you, really, and help you to think a little bit about how you might incorporate some of these newer ideas into the way in which you're operating. Um, we will certainly work towards providing opportunities for you to identify and set intentions on behaving and engaging with the world differently on a weekly basis. I want to encourage you to think about um, maybe using a notebook or having some sort of centralized location where you can keep track of ideas that come to you while we're communicating, and where you can sort of track what you do from a week to week, and kind of see how this might influence your life, in a practical, tangible way on paper or virtually. Um, One of the common themes that we will have across videos is really this idea of pausing and reflecting and intending. And really, what we're wanting you to do is to really purposefully and intentionally notice the world around you, the environment that you're in, and notice your internal experience, your thoughts, your feelings, how you're behaving. And we want you to sort of take that information, notice it, and incorporate it into a choice about how you move forward. We're often on autopilot, and we can find ourselves engaging in thoughtless, habitual patterns of behavior that are really unhelpful, right? So, part of what we want to do with our time here with you is to create this time to pause, reflect, and intend, and to move forward purposefully and intentionally. Okay, so having said that, a fundamental concept that I'm introducing today is the cognitive triangle. And this is a graphic, visually, a representation that highlights really an important psychological foundational concept, principle, that thoughts and feelings and behaviors are interrelated. You can see that the arrows are speared on both sides to show the bidirectionality. They influence each other, right? Um, and so the other piece that follows that is if you change one of these, if you change your thoughts or your behavior, your feelings, you likely change the others as well. And when you think about it, feelings is really the most difficult one to change directly, right? If someone says to you, hey, you're feeling anxious, stop feeling anxious, are you really going to be able to sort of snap your fingers or flip a switch and stop feeling anxious? Probably not. If it were that easy, that would be great. It just usually isn't, right? And so the way in which you move to shift the way you're feeling is by shifting the way you're thinking, which is more in your control, or shift the way you behave, which is more in your control, right? This is not to say we want to avoid feelings. I want to be really clear about that. It is important to feel your feelings. We don't want to get stuck in them, and we don't want them to interfere with our functioning. And when we find ourselves getting stuck in them and we find ourselves having limited functional capacity, we want to figure out how to shift. And one of the ways we do that is we can modify our thoughts and our behavior, because that's an effective way to shift. Okay, so I'm going to share a situation that I think we've all probably experienced given our increased reliance on technology over this past year during COVID. So the situation here is my technology is not working. And what I want to highlight in this slide is that thoughts and feelings and behaviors are related. And I want to show you when you start with thoughts, how they might impact and be related to your feelings and your behaviors. So under these circumstances, you may have an automatic thought that's not really helpful, but honest, automatic under these circumstances, right? You may you may find your computer, your technology not working, and you may find yourself thinking, I am awful at technology. I'm never going to get this to work. And so when you think that way, and you follow that sort of train of thought to feelings, and you look at the bottom right hand corner of this triangle, how might you feel if you're thinking that way? You may feel defeated, right? You might also feel angry and frustrated, but we're going to go with defeated. So you may feel defeated. And if you feel defeated, what might naturally come from that by way of behavioral outcome? You might cry, just fine. You might give up. You might throw the towel in and you might just say, I'm done, right? Which is really not helping your functioning, and it just doesn't feel great, right? So one of the things we want to encourage you to do is to go back to that pause, reflect, and intend. And as you're going through the scenario, catch yourself in this unhelpful thought process. Catch yourself having that thought that's really not useful to you in a lot of different ways. And think about how you might be able to move forward differently, right? And so one of the things I want you to do is to consider, if this thought is unhelpful, or it's not true, what replacement thought can you generate? Can you come up with that is both true and helpful that might shift the way you're feeling about things and might shift your behavioral outcome? So let's revisit that scenario. If we return to this scenario, my technology is not working, and we catch ourselves having an unhelpful thought of like, I'm awful at technology, I'm never going to get this to work. And you go, oh, this is not helpful for me. I need to shift how I'm thinking about this because I'm just stuck. And you come up with a replacement thought. Again, it needs to be true and it needs to be helpful. We got to be able to believe the things we're telling ourselves sort of authentically, right? So instead, might you think of something like, I'm not an IT specialist, but I'm smart and I can figure this out, right? If that's where you shift your thinking, what kind of emotional experience might you have following that thought? You might be curious. I wonder what's going on here. I'm going to try to figure this out. And you might be calm, which really leaves a lot more space to have a different behavioral outcome. Under those circumstances, you might actually do some problem solving and get to the bottom of what's going on. And it'll also probably help you to feel better too, right? So again, want to take this idea that thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are related, want you to start paying attention and noticing how that works out in your life, and to think about how that might look differently moving forward. So let's pause, reflect, and intend on cognitive triangle. This week, think about how does the cognitive triangle work in your life? Can you catch yourself feeling overwhelmed and notice your knee-jerk reactions? Can you notice the thoughts that you're having and how these thoughts influence how you feel and how you behave? And once you catch that and you notice that, can you do a shift? Can you try to shift your thinking to something more helpful and true? And can you be gentle and curious with yourself in your thoughts? So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. Look forward to seeing you next week. I hope this is helpful, and we will follow up and build on this information next week. Thank you so much for being here with me today.